and then we shall continue with our Goloka discussion. Hare Krishna. Let's do the Mangalachara and maybe a quick recap, and then we shall start. Oh. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanajnashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yudapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evasha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Onwards. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev Maharaj ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhesh. Hare Krishna everyone. सभी भक्तों का स्वागत है. Thank you so much for being here. Let's continue our discussion on Goloka chart. So we have seen in Goloka chart the spiritual worlds, and now we are moving towards material world. And in between there is a transition where Brahm Jyoti comes into picture, and that's what we are discussing now. तो आध्यात्मिक जगत से भौतिक जगत की तरफ जब हम आ रहे हैं, तो आध्यात्मिक जगत में हमने गोलोक धाम, हरिधाम, वैकुंठ कवर किया. फिर हम भौतिक संसार करेंगे डिस्कस, लेकिन उससे पहले हम ब्रह्म ज्योति और जहां से भौतिक संसार की उत्पत्ति होती है उसको डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. Let's maybe I need to go much further. So we discussed Brahman and Brahm Jyoti. And I think Prabhuji, okay, we discussed Mahatattva we shall discuss. Okay, maybe that's where we were. Right, so this is what we discussed. Brahm Jyoti, the effulgence of the Lord, is Brahman. And we notice the difference between Brahma and Brahman. We are in a Brahmand, which is called universe. तो जब हम universe सुनते हैं modern science के अंदर, modern science जब हम कहते हैं तो 500 to 800 years 500 साल से 800 साल के बीच में जो साइंस शुरू हुई उसको हम मॉडर्न साइंस कहते हैं. Vedic culture is around 5,000 years back. It's even older than that, but 5,000 years is what this Kalyug has already been. तो 5,000 सालों से ये कलयुग ऑलरेडी शुरू हो चुका है, 5,240 साल के आसपास. Now, the universe we see, the Brahman we see, the very first Jiva is called Brahman, which we will see when we will see the Brahman. But very similar is Brahman. Now, Brahman is the concept and Brahma is the Jiva. And because the name is so close to each other, a lot of time devotees get confused. So Brahman जीव है जो हम भी ब्रह्मा बन सकते हैं, और ब्रह्मा और हम में बहुत ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है. अगर हम अपने और बाकी तत्वों के कंपैरिजन में देखें तो हम जीव तत्व हैं, हम भी ब्रह्मा जी भी. पर अभी हम जिस चीज की बात कर रहे हैं वो ब्रह्मन. वो ब्रह्मन क्या है? ब्रह्मन भगवान की शक्ति है. अगर Brahman could be defined into many different ways. The way we could define Brahman, the way it's been defined here is the effulgence, because what we say is Brahm Jyoti. Now again, Mataji had asked a very good question, the difference between Brahman and Brahm Jyoti. So whatever we see here in the material world is due to Brahman, is due to the energies of the God, of the Lord. So Lord is somewhere, the Lord's energies are everywhere. And because Lord's energy is everywhere, we can also say Lord is everywhere. Because sunlight is coming from sun. So what we usually say, oh, in this country, sun comes a bit less. Now, sun doesn't come, sun radiations come, right? But we equate sun's radiations to sun. तो जिस तरीके से हम ये देखते हैं कि सूरज एक ही जगह है, लेकिन सूरज की रोशनी हर जगह जाती है, और क्योंकि सूरज की रोशनी हम तक पहुंचती है तो हम कह देते हैं कि भाई सूरज आज आया है, सूरज नहीं आया है, सूरज इस कंट्री में होता है, कभी नहीं होता है, विंटर में सूरज कम आता है. बट इट्स नॉट द सन. सूरज नहीं है जो आता है, सूरज की रोशनी आती है. तो उसी प्रकार से कृष्णा की जो शक्ति है जिसकी वजह से सब कुछ चल रहा है, उसको हम ब्रह्मन कह सकते हैं. ये एक कंसेप्ट है जिसे हम समझ सकते हैं. और भी ब्रह्मन को बहुत अलग अलग तरीके से उपनिषद में ब्रह्मन को ही सबसे ऊंचा दिखाया है, और उपनिषद में ब्रह्मन को अलग अलग कहानियों के रूप में बनाया है. अलग अलग जो ऋषि मुनि हुए हैं उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से ब्रह्मन को डिस्क्राइब किया है. एंड ब्रह्मन इज द वेरी फर्स्ट एस्पेक्ट ऑफ गॉड रियलाइजेशन. सो वी हैव, एंड दिस इज व्हाट वी, if you go further, then we saw a lot of references, then how Brahman and the difference between Jiva Atma. But this is where we could understand Lord Krishna, absolute truth. Now we have discussed Lord Krishna being absolute truth. The absolute truth is what everyone talks about. Now when I say everyone, that's within Sanatan Dharma and even outside Sanatan Dharma. So absolute is the one which doesn't change, absolute, and it's truth because it's what we say, it doesn't change, and that's one of those things. Accept it, nothing else is true. Now what does that mean? It means accept that everything else could take birth and could go away, could disappear. तो अगर हम भगवान को कहते हैं एब्सोल्यूट ट्रुथ, और ये सिर्फ हमारे ही वैदिक कल्चर में नहीं, आप किसी भी धर्म को हम देखेंगे तो उसके अंदर जो भगवान है, भगवान को जो भी नाम से बुलाएंगे उनको उनकी यही क्वालिटीज बताएंगे, हम जिसको कहते हैं सत्य चित्त आनंद. सो द गॉड इज सत्य चित्त आनंद, वो वी से इटर्नल कॉन्शियस ब्लिस. That's what God is. Now, of course, then there are many school of thoughts within Sanatan Dharma itself. Some will say Advaita, some will say Dvaita. And was it Harish ji who had sent out some of the pictures? and we can discuss them as well. If I'm just checking, oh, Sanjeev ji has sent it. So Sanjeev ji is not here today. Right. If in case we want, we can check them as well. They are very similar to Goloka chart. Well, I say similar. The beginning is there in those pictures, but Goloka chart is much bigger compared to that. And in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, then there are verses. And then in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada ji has explained very nicely that there could be different realizations of Brahman as well. Not different realizations of Brahman, that might be not the logical thought, but it's like in different phases. So if we take the analogy, and let's continue this. So very first thing we say Brahman, and then we say, so this is impersonal because we cannot see God, we cannot see sun, but we can see the radiations, we can feel the radiation. Sunshine is an example. Paramatma is the localized aspect in heart of everyone. Now, Brahman is the energy. Paramatma is that fragmental part of Krishna, which is there in everyone, because of whom we can see that Brahman is exist, right? So because of that, Brahman exists, but because Paramatma is there. But Paramatma is also very minute, localized. Everyone got Paramatma. And then Bhagwan is one, right? And the way we understand is, in the bracket if we see, it says sun planet, sun surface, and sunshine, right? Now another example, we have seen it before, but this is a good time to remind ourselves of a couple of analogies. The first one is the train analogy we would have seen, yes? So the train is there. Somebody who hasn't seen the train goes to the train railway station, and the train is coming, but before the train, the voice comes, right? The train whistles, and we can hear. If somebody hasn't seen the train, somebody doesn't know what train is, the whistle itself is the sign that yes, train is coming, train is approaching, or train is going away, train is there because of the voice, we can say. That is the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit. That even if train is not visible, the voice is there, the attribute, the qualities, the existence could be impersonal. But then from the distance, we can see, we can see that train is there, right? That could be the second level of realizations. And these are just levels. And then the third, when the train comes along, then we can see the train, we can touch the train. And if train is still whistling, we can hear the train as well at the same time. So it's not that if we have Paramatma realization, we don't have Brahman realization. No, we have, so at Brahman, we have Brahman realization. At Paramatma, we have Paramatma and Brahman realization. At Bhagwan, we have all three realizations. So this is just for our understanding. Similar way, the example of going to the restaurant and eating something. If you go to the restaurant, if we sat down there to eat something. Now okay, sorry, there are some comments there. Okay, all right. All right, okay, somebody has asked for Karnodakshaya Vishnu. Yes, so we will discuss Karnodakshaya Vishnu as well. जी, हम Karnodakshaya Vishnu को की जो विष्णु तत्व है, हम वहां पर जाएंगे. हम इसके बाद ही एक्चुअली डिस्कस करेंगे. बट ब्रह्मन, परमात्मा एंड भगवान, अगर हम ये कंसेप्ट को समझें तो हम ये समझ सकते हैं कि जो हिंदू धर्म के अंदर डिफरेंट स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स हम जिनको कहते हैं, वो हैं, चाहे शंकराचार्य जी हो, चाहे माधवाचार्य जी तो बहुत क्लोज हैं, वशिष्ठ हम कहते हैं, जितने भी स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स मिलेंगे वो सब इस डेफिनेशन, इस अंडरस्टैंडिंग के अंदर आ जाते हैं. अगर कोई सिर्फ ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन के बारे में सोचे तो उनके लिए बहुत मुश्किल होता है भगवान रियलाइजेशन को समझ पाना, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन के बारे में सोचते हैं. और इसी तरीके से अगर कोई सिर्फ भगवान रियलाइजेशन के बारे में सोचे और परमात्मा, भगवान, ब्रह्मन को निग्लेक्ट कर दे, तो उनके लिए भी बहुत मुश्किल होगा भगवान तक पहुंच पाना, क्योंकि भगवान को समझने से पहले भगवान की शक्ति, भगवान की क्वालिटीज को समझना बहुत जरूरी है। और भगवान तक पहुंचेंगे तभी जब भगवान की क्वालिटीज, भगवान के फीचर्स को समझ पाएंगे। So that's why this is very important. We cannot skip it. It's not that we will not have Brahman realization, we will not have Paramatma realization, and we can have Bhagwan realization. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि सूरज की रोशनी तक हम ना पहुंचे और हम सूरज तक पहुंच जाएं, ऐसा हो नहीं सकता। तो इसी तरीके से ब्रह्मन और परमात्मा रियलाइजेशन के बिना हम भगवान रियलाइजेशन तक पहुंच जाएं, ये होना मुमकिन नहीं है, क्योंकि डेफिनेशन इस तरीके से है कि ये एस्पेक्ट हैं भगवान के, ऐसा है। तो और भगवान रियलाइजेशन, ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन कब हो सकता है? ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन, ये रियलाइजेशंस हैं, ये वर्ड्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हैं। अगर हम सोचें ये रियलाइजेशन का क्या मतलब है, ये बड़े बड़े वर्ड्स हो सकते हैं, ग्रंथों में यूज होते हैं, संस्कृत वर्ड भी थोड़े से भारी रहते हैं। अगर हम इनको समझने की कोशिश करें, क्या मतलब क्या है इसका कि ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन, ब्रह्मन हमने कहा भगवान की शक्तियां हैं, रियलाइजेशन क्या है? रियलाइजेशन हम कहते हैं एक नॉलेज होती है, एक विजडम होती है, और फिर एक्सपीरियंस के साथ में एक रियलाइजेशन होती है, राइट। ये वो बात होती है जब कोई संत किसी को कुछ कहता है और वो मानता नहीं है, लेकिन बाद में एक्सपीरियंस से जब वो चीजें घटती हैं तब हम बाद में मानते हैं, यार वो संत ने कहा था ना, बिल्कुल सही कहा था। क्यों? क्योंकि अब हमारे रियलाइजेशन के ऊपर वो चीज हो गई। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, वेरी बेसिक, इफ अ मॉस्किटो हैज bit us and we will say, mosquito, right? Somebody would have said, oh, mosquito pain is very much, but until unless we have been bitten, we won't be able to say that, oh, it was painful. So that's what our personal realization is. जब हमको चोट लगी तब हमको पता लगा। इसी तरीके से ये बोरोड, हमारा उधार लिया हुआ ज्ञान हो सकता है कि किसी ने कहा और हमने सुन लिया, लेकिन जब ये रियलाइजेशन हमारी अपनी, इसलिए वर्ड यूज होता है सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन। द वर्ड इज मेंशन सेल्फ realized person, right? So it's not that somebody else touched us and now it's not that Krishna gave Bhagavad Gita to Arjun and that's it, Arjun was enlightened. No, Arjun had to live through those principles, right? And then that was a self-realization for Arjun. But Arjun was in a different category anyways, because Krishna and Arjun were part of Narayan. But if you think about, then Brahman realization is that very first realization when we understand that everything which we see, we touch and we experience is based on Krishna, is based on Supreme Lord. From here, if we move forward, then it says Bhagwan is back. That's why we say Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, Mataji, please.
Yes, Prabhuji, I find it bit, I'm trying to find answers to my question of why people like Gnanis, like Swami Vivekananda, Armindo, why are they looking for Brahman realization? Is there something that they don't believe in the concept of the Bhagwan, or these are Gnanis and they've got so much knowledge about everything and still they're aiming for the something which is at the periphery of these three aspects of the absolute truth?
Yes. Very, very good question, Mataji. And I did ask this question myself as well, and I asked this question others also. But I think Abhishek ji got something to say. Abhishek ji?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. जी.
Prabhuji, एक्चुअली इसका सबसे मेन रीजन ये है मेरे हिसाब से, मतलब कि आफ्टर श्रीपाद शंकराचार्य जी ने बहुत ही एक अलग टाइप की प्रीचिंग की थी कृष्ण के कहने पे, मतलब भगवान के कहने पे ही उन्होंने हमारे सारे शास्त्रों को ढक दिया था। तो यहाँ तक कि जो हमारा 11th कैंटो है भागवतम में, जिसमें भगवान के तत्व के बारे में बहुत ज्यादा डिस्कशन हुआ है, उसमें मैं चूंकि गीता प्रेस का पढ़ा हूँ, जिसमें थोड़ा बहुत मायावादी ब्रह्म वाला, जिन्होंने भी वो उसमें टीका दी है, उन्होंने थोड़ा सा फ्लेवर लिया है उन्होंने मायावाद का, मतलब कि भगवान निराकार है, उस फ्लेवर में उन्होंने उसका ट्रांसलेशन किया है। सो उसमें कृष्ण बता कुछ और रहे हैं, लेकिन उन सारे श्लोकों का अर्थ ढक दिया गया था। तो कोई भी अपने से उसको पढ़ेगा तो उसको वही समझ आएगा कि भगवान निराकार है। यहाँ तक कि भगवान जो भागवत धर्म बता रहे हैं 11th कैंटो में, मैं खुद पढ़ा हूँ, उसमें ये लिखा है कि तुम सब जगह, मतलब भगवान उद्धव जी को बता रहे हैं कि तुम हर एक चीज को मेरे को समझ के ही भगवान की तरह वो करो, सब जगह कृष्ण कृष्ण देखने की भावना उत्पन्न करो। सो वो शंकराचार्य जी के बाद ही ऐसा कंडीशन क्रिएट हुआ था कि सारे शास्त्रों का जो भी श्लोक का अर्थ है वो चेंज कर दिया था उन्होंने, मायावादी कमेंट्री देके। इसलिए उसके बाद जितने भी, चूंकि है तो सारे बद्ध जीव ना, कंडीशन सोल, जब तक कोई आचार्य नहीं आते हैं भगवान के धाम से तो शास्त्रों का सही अर्थ प्रकाशित कैसे होगा। इसीलिए फिर भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर के बाद वो जितना कुछ भी गंदगी हो गया था वो हमारे गुरुवर्ग आके साफ किए। सो आचार्यों का इम्पोर्टेंस बहुत है, वरना शास्त्रों को तो अभी कोई खुद से पढ़े तो कुछ उसमें समझ ही नहीं आएगा, सब ढका हुआ है मायावाद से।
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण. Yes. जी अभिषेक जी, थैंक यू सो मच, आपने बहुत अच्छे से बताया. And yes, Mataji, so what Abhishek ji basically said, that for the Shankaracharya ji's point of view, because he was the very first one. Of course, everything has been there in the Vedas and Upanishad for long, but Shankaracharya ji was the one who came right after Buddha. So Buddha was the one who said, because Karma Kand used to happen a lot, and on the basis of Karma Kand, a lot of animal sacrifices used to happen, based on the evidences from the Vedas, because in Vedas there is a big section on Karma Kandas. So a lot of Brahmins were like this, that they were not, I would say they were corrupt, in a sense that the knowledge was one side, but they used to benefit those who are much more motivated towards karma kandas. And because they could easily find the evidences in the Vedas, okay, it says here that this is the way we should do it. And why it was permissible. So I actually did, I'm doing a course, and I recently did an exam. And in the exam, this question was there, that why in our Vedas, in our Shastras, this meat eating and intoxication was allowed.
Yeah.
It says was, but if you think about it, the Shastra is eternal, which means the Shastra is still there, which means we can say is allowed. It's still allowed. If in case somebody will just refer to that part of it. If somebody will only refer to that part of it, then the person can say, yeah, it's allowed. It says there. Now the answer is, and the same or similar answer is there, why I completely agree with you. What we say, Buddhi Jeev, somebody as clever, as smart, as wise as Vivekanand Swamiji, Yoganand Paramahansa ji, why they only went for Brahman and they didn't go for, it actually appears to us that they only went for Brahman and they didn't go for Paramatma and they didn't go for Bhagwan. Why? Because, well, that's the first part, that it appears to us that they only went for Brahman, they didn't go for the others too. And the other part is that based on the, like what Srila Prabhupada ji always said, time, place, and circumstances. So there was a time the Brahmins were good, like in Satyug, but then obviously Kali Yuga started, and after that a lot of degradation happened. And then when a lot of animal sacrifices used to happen, then Brahma came. Now, sorry, Buddha came. Now Gautam Buddha is also one of the incarnation of the Lord mentioned in Bhagavatam. When he came, he rejected all the Vedas. Now that could be one of the question. Now, Vedas were given by Ved Vyas, and Ved Vyas is also partial incarnation of the Lord. So he came of the Vedas, and then he's the one who did Upanishad, Purans and everything. And then the Lord came himself in another form, in another incarnation as Buddha, and then he rejected all those. what he had given in the past. Now, the main understanding there is time, place, and circumstances. So when Ved Vyas gave those, first of all, again, Vedas, they were eternal. It's not that Ved Vyas actually compiled all the Vedas. Ved Vyas compiled all the Vedas. Vedas were there all the time. Ji, Lipi Badh means written. So he wrote all of them, otherwise they were there before. So they were there, the knowledge was there, the wisdom was there, but Ved Vyas ji knew very well that Kali Yuga is about to come. And in Kali Yuga, the jivas will not have enough to memorize, right? So our obviously intelligence will go down, memory will go down. And that's the reason he wrote everything down. So he said, okay, I'm going to write everything down. So first Ved, then Upanishad, then Purans. But then what happened? The understanding went down. Then, as you would know, then there were 4 legs of the dharma. And then slowly, gradually, those legs fell down as well. The true understanding, the intentions got diluted. And people, especially Brahmins, because Brahmin class was the one, it was their responsibility to understand the Vedas and to teach Vedas to everyone. Kshatriyas, they were the protectors. Like if you think about the politicians, yeah, or when the Pandavas were there, they were people call them rulers. They were actually not rulers, they were the protectors. But of course, while protecting, they were ruling also. But again, ruling as such is not the word in Shastra. There is a word called reign. Reign is where one after another. So if, for example, Dhritarashtra was not a capable king, so that's why he was not given the throne. Obviously, he was given the throne by his younger brother, and that was too temporary. That I'm going to go in the jungle, why don't you become the king? And not that you become the king, you take care of it. Like what happened in the case of Lord Ram and Bharat. Bharat said, okay, as a servant of you, I will take care of this, but this is yours and you are the king. Dhritarashtra obviously didn't have such a high consciousness like Bharat, so he could not do it. So this is what happened. And then when Lord also had a plan that, okay, Kali Yuga will come, in the Kali Yuga, people will misuse the knowledge and the wisdom given in Vedas. Now, what's given in Vedas? In Vedas, and if you think about Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, of course, a great big ocean. But like it says that Bhagavad Gita, only 700 verses compared to millions, not millions. So it's, well, if you say, yeah, we can say nearly
4 lakh.
Yeah, 400,000, which is we say 4 lakhs. So that's all together what we call. But yeah, let's focus on that. Now, compared to Vedas, only 700 verses in Bhagavad Gita. And even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna on one-to-one basis to Arjun has given many different paths. So said that, okay, if somebody who can, so many places, not only in chapter 2, Krishna says Atma Gyan, the knowledge of the soul, then the Buddhi Gyan, the Karma Gyan. And then very briefly, Krishna mentioned Ashtanga Yoga also in chapter 2. But they said, okay, in chapter 6, I'm going to give you detail of Ashtanga Yoga. And then, of course, moving towards the Dhyan Yoga and then to Bhakti Yoga. Then later on also, Krishna said in chapter 11 said it, chapter 16 said it, that if somebody cannot follow this, then do this. If you can't do this, at least do that. And that's what we call yoga ladder. Now, yoga ladder is that based on our guna. So we all have gunas. We all, based on our previous experience or whatever the karmas we have gathered, based on that, we might have intentions towards one. We might have only karma yoga. So there are many karma yogis there. Now, of course, if karma yogis, we will ask them to leave everything and do bhakti yoga, it's very hard for them. And Srila Prabhupada did that very expertly. Because when he went to America, he met many different people. He used to be renowned that he would identify who is good in what. Now, this morning, we had a Chaitanya Charitamrita session. and one of the Mataji, she gave the lecture today, and she said Raghunath Das.
Das Goswami.
Yes, there are two, Raghunath Bhatt or Raghunath Das. I think it was about Raghunath Das ji, that he did not write any. So Rupa Goswami ji, Jiva Goswami ji, Sanatan Goswami ji, they have written a lot of scriptures. Lot of, for example, Rupa Goswami ji, what we read in Bhakti Shastri, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and Updeshamrit. So, but Rupa, sorry,
Raghunath.
Bhattacharya ji, not Bhattacharya ji,
Raghunath.
Raghunath Das Goswami ji, he has not written anything. Now,
Oh, Prabhuji, he has written some
Well-
books like Vilap Kushmanjali and all that.
yes,
He has written some books. I think he is Gopal, but no, I was not
Raghunath,
sure. But
Raghunath
रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी उन्होंने तो लिखा है.
जी नहीं, रघुनाथ दास जी ने जो लिखा है वो बाद में लिखा है. चैतन्य महाप्रभु जी ने जो कहा था, क्योंकि चैतन्य महाप्रभु जी के थे ये अपने 6 गोस्वामी जो थे, जो डायरेक्ट डिसाइपल्स थे, लेकिन रघुनाथ दास जी जो थे, रघुनाथ भट्ट जी भी, ये दोनों के दोनों अपने रूपा गोस्वामी जी के साथ में थे, उनके निर्देशक में थे.
हाँ, महाप्रभु के शरीर छोड़ने के बाद वो
हाँ जी.
पुरी से आ गए थे वृंदावन.
जी. सो द डायरेक्ट जो वो हम अगर देखें, जो चैतन्य महाप्रभु जी ने जो इंस्ट्रक्शंस दी थी, तो उन्होंने इंस्ट्रक्शंस दी थी रूपा गोस्वामी, सनातन गोस्वामी, जीव गोस्वामी जी को शास्त्र लिखने की, लेकिन रघुनाथ दास जी को उन्होंने इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं दी थी. उनके लिए डिफरेंट इंस्ट्रक्शंस थी. He had different instructions. So similar thing Srila Prabhupada ji also did. If somebody was good in
मानसिक
accounts,
सेवा करने के लिए
जी,
महाप्रभु ने
भागवतम,
उनको
जी, भागवतम जो रिसाइट करते हैं वो उनकी बहुत अच्छी थी. तो उनको भागवतम अलग अलग लैंग्वेजेस के ऊपर बहुत अच्छा उनका कमांड था. तो इसलिए वो सेवा उनको कही थी कि आप ये करें. और आज भी अगर हम देखें ब्रज के अंदर मेनली, तो उनकी जो रिसाइटेशंस हुए हैं वो बहुत ज्यादा, मतलब हम शायद ऐसा, जो गीत लिखे हैं वो बहुत अलग अलग वैष्णव आचार्यों ने लिखे हैं, लेकिन जो भागवतम की रिसाइटेशन है वो चैतन्य महाप्रभु जी रघुनाथ जी से सुना करते थे. और उसी
रघुनाथ
चीज,
भट्ट थे प्रभु जी.
वो रघुनाथ भट्ट थे, मैंने रघुनाथ दास
जी.
कहा शायद, है ना, रघुनाथ भट्ट गोस्वामी जी. जी सॉरी, मैं यही सोच रहा था, क्योंकि 6 गोस्वामी जी में दोनों आते हैं, रघुनाथ भट्ट भी आते हैं, रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी जी भी आते हैं. तो रघुनाथ भट्ट थे जिनसे खुद सुना करते थे, और उन्होंने कोई लिटरेचर भी नहीं, उनको लिटरेचर लिखने को कहा भी नहीं, और उनको जो इंस्ट्रक्शन थी वो सिर्फ इस चीज की थी कि आप भागवतम की कथाएं करें आगे, जो बाकियों को नहीं कहा था. हालांकि बाकियों का भी उसमें इंटरेस्ट था, लेकिन जिस चीज में जो भक्त अच्छा था उनको उस चीज के लिए कहा गया था. Similar thought Srila Prabhupada ji also did, that whoever devotee was good in something. Srila Prabhupada ji's Guru Maharaj, he also did something very similar. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ji, he said, so when I went to Mayapur, I went to a god brother of Srila Prabhupada ji, who was good in other language, and his instructions from his Guru Maharaj was that you go and you do the prachar in this language. And because Srila Prabhupada ji was good in English, so his instruction was that you go and you do the preaching in English, because his English was good. And that's what he started initially, and later on he moved on to America just to fulfill his Guru's desire. Now, if we take this concept and if we come back to the question that Ved Vyas ji wrote, so the Lord in form of Ved Vyas ji wrote all the Vedas, then when the misuse was there, then Lord in the form of Gautam Buddha came and then said, okay, stop using everything about Vedas. And then he said nothing whatsoever. And that's what we call Shunyavad. And then Shankaracharya ji, and that was also like what we usually say, that Shankaracharya ji was the incarnation of Lord Shiva. So that's where he got, and जिस तरीके से अभिषेक जी ने बताया, ग्रंथों में अलग अलग जगह इस चीज का मेंशन है कि किस तरीके से लॉर्ड शिवा को ये इंस्ट्रक्शन मिली कि आप जाएं और शंकराचार्य जी के रूप में खंडन करें इस चीज का। और लॉर्ड शिवा ने एक जगह पार्वती जी को ये भी कहा कि मैंने बहुत सारी सेवा करी है भगवान के लिए, लेकिन ये सेवा में मेरे को थोड़ा सा दुख हो रहा है, क्योंकि इस सेवा में मैं लोगों को थोड़ा सा भ्रमित करूंगा। So I will bewilder a lot of devotees from the path of bhakti. But again, bhakti was not there. The grounding was gradual. So because there was nothing, so people were not talking about Bhagwan realization. They were not talking about Paramatma realization. Their conscious was not even elevated to the level of Brahman. And Brahman in itself is supreme. Brahman in itself, अभिषेक जी ने एक वर्स भागवतम का दिया है 1-11, एंड सिमिलर वर्सेस और हैं भागवतम में जहां पे ब्रह्मन परमात्मा भगवान को, जो यहाँ पे हमने लिखा है 3 एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ गॉड हेड, तो ये भागवतम के अंदर बहुत स्पष्ट रूप में है कि ब्रह्मन परमात्मा और भगवान ये भगवान के ही ईश्वर के रियलाइजेशंस हैं। तो द क्वेश्चन माता जी आस्क्ड दैट व्हाई at that time these spiritual gurus like Swami Vivekanand ji, Ramanand Paramhans ji, Paramhans Yoganand ji, and there are many, why they only restricted themselves to Brahman? The reason, the partial reason, if we think about the main logical reason, that people were not even conscious enough to the first level. So there was not much point to discuss to the second and third level.
Yes.
Right? And if we think for ourselves, even for us to reach to the Brahman realization is a huge step, If we are Brahman realized, we are enlightened. So that's where we can say we are liberated, which means we are not going to get the material body back again if we are Brahman realized. And all the devotees, they will get Brahman realization for sure before they reach to Bhagwan realization. However, what Srila Prabhupada ji said, or what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji came along for, is that, okay, and this is what we see in all the acharyas, especially in Sanatan Dharma, they came and they gradually gave something. So initially Vedvyaji gave everything, but then, and that was just before before the Kali Yuga was about to start. Then Buddha came, then Shankaracharya ji came, and that's a gradual step. Then other acharyas come, and right at the end, so Ramanujacharya ji was there, but right at the end, Madhavacharya ji came. After Madhavacharya ji, then Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji came himself, and then the whole bhakti cult was all open to everyone. That this is what we need to do. Now we cannot go. So it was very gradual. And whoever came at some point was only preaching that bit. So Shankaracharya ji came. The main purpose for Shankaracharya ji was from moving from Buddha, because Buddha said no Vedas at all. Buddha put stop on Vedas. That you just do meditation and you will get everything. You don't need to follow anything, because people were misusing it. And at that point, that was perfect. Then Shankaracharya ji came and said, okay, what this guy is saying, okay, you have listened to that, but you also have that part of Upanishad which says Brahman realization, and we can follow that. And then Buddha and Shankaracharya ji fought or had the arguments, and then Shankaracharya ji was the, what we say, latest addition. And then we had other acharyas, and that it kept going. The only problem happened, and it still exists, when people hold on to one thing, and they don't understand that this is just a subset of the bigger picture. It's like if there are 18 main Puranas. One is Shiv Puran, one is Brahma Puran, one is Vishnu Puran, and Bhagavatam, and there are many more. Now, if somebody will just pick Shiv Puran and then just stick to Shiv Puran, or one only pick Brahma Puran or Narad Puran, then it's a bit hard. But it says then Bhagavatam is the, what we say, Amal Puran. Now in Vedas, in Puranas actually, the list of Puranas are given, and Puranas are split into 3 different categories based on the gunas. Based on gunas, Sat Guna, so goodness, passion, ignorance, Sat, Raj, Tam. And now we need to see which Puranas we need to refer. And then within that also there are different categories. If we follow, and these are given in Puranas also, the lists given more than twice in all the 18 Puranas. And then if we read that, then we can reach to the conclusion that Bhagavatam is supreme. And then when we start reading Bhagavatam, we see from the author himself, from the Ved Vyas, the conversation between Ved Vyas with his teacher Naradji. And then we can understand what he's saying, that whatever I have written before, all the 4 Vedas, all the Upanishads, all the Puranas, all the Itihasas, then Bhagavatam is the essence of everything. What it says, the natural commentary on Vedic of Vedanta.
Sutra.
Yes, of Vedanta Sutra, Vedanta. So Vedanta, like where the Ved ends, and then the sutras are like the highlights of them. And the Bhagavatam is there. So if somebody will read Bhagavatam, then everything which we could get from anywhere else in the Vedic culture, Vedic wisdom, Vedic Shastras, that's there. Nobody will miss anything if we understand Bhagavatam very clearly. Bhagavatam is full of nectar, 18,000 verses. So Mataji, that's where, sorry, it's a long and winded question. Sorry, the answer, the question was straightforward, I guess. But the understanding is true. Now, again, the devotees also go to the flip side when they start criticizing others. So again, there is no need to criticize. Now, Srila Prabhupada was on a different level. Srila Prabhupada could criticize Mayavadis, right? Or his teachers or our acharyas could do it. But until unless our consciousness is that high, we are not that enhanced, we are making mistakes ourselves. So I always say, if I'm selfish, I would like to clean my house first. Right? And then, yes, if it's working for me, whatever bit, then I can say something. Well, it's working for me. You might try and it might work for you also. But there is no need for me to go and tell somebody else that your house is dirty. But yes, again, it says devotees only have one. So devotees are always happy devotees, right? But devotees can only have one. What it says, the pida, the dukh, the grief, only one. And what is that? That when devotees see somebody else suffering. If devotees are happy, but they will see somebody else suffering, then devotees will go and say, well, why are you stuck in this? Why don't you read Bhagavatam or understand Bhagavad Gita? Why don't you live the life like this? And then you will be happy. You don't really need the happiness, what we think happiness from external sources. That's the only thing what devotees could have. Otherwise, devotees are always happy. हरे कृष्णा. अभिषेक जी, आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, प्लीज.
प्रभु जी, एक पॉइंट ऐसे मतलब मन में आया. एक बहुत लोग कंफ्यूज, मतलब इन 2 वर्ड्स को सिमिलर समझ लेते हैं, ब्रह्मवादी और मायावादी, लेकिन इन दोनों वर्ड्स में काफी डिफरेंस है.
बिल्कुल जी जी.
शंकराचार्य जी ने जो प्रचार किया था वो ब्रह्मवाद का था, लेकिन अब लोग अपना उसमें बुद्धि लगा के उसको मायावाद कर दिए, जो कि ऑफेंस हो जाता है भगवान के चरणों में. लेकिन अगर कोई प्योर ब्रह्मवादी होता है, देन इफ उसको कोई साधु संग प्राप्त होता है, तो उसकी भक्ति हमसे बहुत ज्यादा तेजी से ये होती है, बिकॉज उसके अनर्थ सारे पहले निवृत्त हो चुके होते हैं.
बिल्कुल. बिल्कुल। हरे कृष्णा। थैंक यू सो मच अभिषेक जी। आपने बहुत ही खूबसूरती से बताया जो चीज मैं कहना चाह रहा था, कि हम नहीं बता सकते कि कोई दूसरा जो भक्त है, जो हो सकता है किसी और संप्रदाय को फॉलो कर रहा हो सकता है किसी और आचार्य को फॉलो कर रहा हो, हम नहीं बता सकते कि उनकी रियलाइजेशन क्या है। और तो हमको क्रिटिसाइज नहीं करना चाहिए, क्योंकि फिर वो अपराध हो सकता है हमारे लिए। एंड if if we are a true devotee, then we will see Paramatma in everyone anyways.
Yeah.
So, and if we will see Paramatma in everyone, then it's the matter if I have two kids, one is a boy, one is a girl. If somebody will say, whom do you love more? Now it's hard to say, because they both are my children, right? So and the same thing, if I will go for, if my father will, if I need to, I will say to my father, I love you, but I don't love my brother, or I don't love my sister, then I know if I don't love my brother and sister, my father will not be happy. Similar ways, if somebody else is now, it could be that my father, one of my sibling, my brother or my sister, might make or commit some aparad or commit some sins, or in material world, let's say, will do something wrong and will go in the jail, right? Now what I can say is that what the person has done is wrong, but I don't need to say that the person is wrong. So they're two different things. The
Yes.
person is not wrong, but what the person has done is wrong. Right? तो इंसान गलत नहीं है, हाँ इंसान के कर्म गलत हो सकते हैं। और अगर हम देखें तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने सारे अच्छे कर्म किए हैं, क्योंकि अगर हमने सारे अच्छे कर्म किए होते तो हम यहाँ पे नहीं होते। हम यहाँ पर हैं, इसका मतलब यही है कि भाई हमने पास्ट में कुछ गलत कर्म किए होंगे। Huh. But now, if we are among devotees, if we get the opportunity to hear Bhagavatam, then this is the mercy of the Lord also. So we should focus on the positive. But if we just remember this bit, then we will always be happy. We don't need to criticize others. A lot of time people criticize a lot of people, not only spiritual, but material also, and not only material, but spiritual also. If they are too spiritual, जो अभी अभिषेक जी ने कहा कि माया, अब बिल्कुल सही है, मायावादी अलग है, ब्रह्मवादी अलग है, ब्रह्मवादी में भी अलग हो सकते हैं। तो कौन क्या है और क्या सोचता है वो बहुत मुश्किल है हमारे लिए कह पाना। लेकिन हाँ ये है कि if somebody is working towards Brahman realization, quite possible once, because see, we all are working towards, we are not realized. Well, I can say for myself, I'm not realized. Let's say somebody else is there who is not Brahman realized, but working towards the realization. When the person is Brahman realized, then maybe after that, the person will realize that now I need to move towards Paramatma realization.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, oh yes, now I need to move towards Bhagwan realization, because it's a gradual process. What Srila Prabhupada ji said, that if we look for the Bhagwan realization, then don't worry about Brahman and Paramatma, they will come along themselves. And if we think about it, that's very true, because when we always hear about Bhagwan, then Brahman and Paramatma, all those things, they are always again and again and again kind of repeated to us in the lectures, in the devotional services. So even if we are not Brahman or Paramatma realization yet, maybe we will, hopefully sooner rather than later. But the idea is, if you look for the Bhagwan, then Brahman and Paramatma realization will happen during the course, on the journey, somewhere before we reach to Bhagwan realization. Now, whether somebody will say that, okay, I need to go to the great university like Oxford or Cambridge, and somebody else will come and say, well, tell you what, I don't want to worry about university just yet, because I need to do GCSE. Let me focus on my GCSE first. Now, both are right, because to get into Oxford, you have to do great GCSE. And once the person has done great in GCSE, then the person will say, okay, now the next is, let me worry about my A level. And then after A level, I will worry about my my graduate degree, wherever I want to go. But it's so The process is the same, but where our focus is. Now what happens, maybe the person who is saying that I am focused towards GCSE, and the person might do great in GCSE, but might not do great in GCSE. And maybe after GCSE, the person will say, okay, I never bothered anyways about A levels. Let me leave my education and let me start working. And that's where the hurdle is. That's where the risk is. That maybe somebody will get to that or working towards Brahman realization. Of course, if the person will do great at GCSE or A level, then GCSE, then definitely move toward the next level because the person got the taste of it. If somebody has done great at GCSE, which means the person is the student is good in studies. The student would like to study more and will automatically go to the next level, which is A level. But if person has just, okay, let me just do GCSE because it's mandatory in this country. Without that, I will not get the job. Then the person will somehow do it and might pass or might fail or might do retakes and all. And after that, leave studies. So if somebody will just work towards Brahman realization, then might get to the realized level, might not, or might have half-baked and will just leave spiritualization completely. Won't be spiritual later on. So this is where the risk lies. That what is our aim? And while we are trying to achieve that aim, there will be milestones in the middle and we will reach to that level and we'll say, okay, thank you so much, Krishna. You made me reach to this level. Let me work towards the next one. And that's how I think if we gradually look for it, and rather than others, if we look towards ourselves, then it's great. But yes, it's very nice. Now, all the wisdom from Swami Vivekananda ji and his teacher, his followers, and many other gurus, they also have it. If we pick so this is one of the analogy I heard somewhere, that there was a mother made kheer. I actually heard in Vipassana, I think, which is Buddhist, actually. And this is how beautiful it is. That if you are spiritual, then you could easily pick things up, and you can, whichever path you are on, you can add that on. And this is the essence of this story. So the mother said that to everyone, that to the child, let's say there was one child, mother said to the child that, oh child, I made this kheer for you. Now in Buddhism, kheer is very important. Well, even actually in Krishna consciousness, kheer is very nice. Prashadam, all the prashadam. But because when Buddha did the meditation and he said, I won't eat anything until I will get liberated. The very first thing after liberation and when he broke his fast was kheer. So that's why kheer is very auspicious for Buddhas. Then, so when mother said to the child, okay, you have some kheer. And he said, no, I want this kheer in my own utensil. I want this in my own utensil. Then the mother said, kids have their own small utensils. The mother said, okay, bring your utensil. He had a toy utensil. He brought the toy utensil. Mother said, okay, let me pour this kheer into yours. And the child said, okay, this is my kheer and this is in my utensil now. But then child said, oh, there is something black in it. And let's see, kheer is white, a lot of white rice, white milk, and one black bit in it. And he said, no, I don't want this. This is black. And mother said, this is elaichi. I think elaichis are there in kheer. This is elaichi. This is really good for the health. Long is also there. Long is there. And the child says, no, I don't want. Mother said, okay, let me take it out. Mother took that black part out or the green elaichi out and said, okay, now it's all white as you want. Now it's in your utensil. Have it. Child says, no. And child pushed the kheer away. Kheer fell down and child did not get benefit out of it. And a lot of time, the seekers, the devotees, they do the same thing. Very first thing, we all say, oh, this is my sampradaya. We say, this is our utensil. Or this is my religion, right? Well, if we find anything good in other religions as well, what's the problem accepting it? If it's good, right? If it's good, if you think about it, there is nothing wrong. in it. And then after that, if we find maybe one thing which we don't understand what is it for, we can easily take this away and take rest of it.
Yes.
Like we take the lychee away, we take the long away, and we can still have rest of it, which is what we take away is very minor bit, but what we take is a lot. But what we usually do, no, it's a different sampradaya, it's a different religion, or this bit is wrong there, and that's it. We just leave everything away. If we somehow able to work towards the common grounds, rather than concentrating on the differences, then, and this is what the Brahman realization is, where we can see Krishna, then moving on from Brahman to Paramatma, not only the energy of the Lord is there everywhere, but the Lord himself, part of the Lord himself is there in everything, not only in every being, living being, but also in everything, also in non-living. The Lord is there. Then how somebody will able to differentiate? Because currently I think I have 2 children. But when I will see that, and why do I love these 2 children? Because they have my blood, right? Because they are my children. They are my children. So children comes later, but my comes first.
Yes.
But what, when my focus is on Krishna, and then I will say, everybody is Krishna's children, then Krishna will come first and children will come later. Then if my 2 children are among 100 children, then I will see all of them together. And this is what liberated. Of course, I can't do that because I'm not liberated. But this is what liberated souls do. Then when they see everyone, they see and they notice and they realize, and this is what Bhagavad Gita says, equiposed, right? So the verse is where the liberated sage will see the elephant, which is supposed to be very auspicious, then the Brahmin, which is the learned one, and the dog and the Chandal, all 4 equal, equiposed. And somebody who can do it, that person is called transcendental. Now, who is transcendentalist? Who is beyond 3 material modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. And that's what, if we could become, we are liberated. We are liberated right here. And we can see Krishna everywhere. We can feel Krishna's presence everywhere in everyone. And then there's no doubt when we leave this material body, we will go back to Krishna, because there is nothing here in material world to hold on to us. Right? So obviously Krishna is always attracting us, but our attraction towards material world is much more. If there is nothing in material mode which is attracting us, then what will keep us here? Nothing. And we will automatically go away. It's like when we are rotating around Earth gravitational force is taking us. As long as we will go out of that gravitational force is not acting us. Now nothing else need to pull us. We will automatically go in this space. It's a very natural process. Keeping us here seems to be unnatural, but moving away is very natural. Now, of course, we have done something sure to get to that level. Hare Krishna.
Very
Thank
nice
you.
explain, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Excellent, very nice text. Makes a bit quite clear. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We
Very
think
nice.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mataji. And it's great. And thank you, Abhishek ji. आप बताते हैं तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है, एक नया पर्सपेक्टिव मिलता है. So thank you so much for everyone's presence. If anyone has any question or any comments, feel free now or later in the group. I think Sanjeev ji didn't come. Otherwise, we would have done those 3 or 4. He actually sent me in the email 4, or somebody else sent me. Somebody else called Thakur. That was surname, I think. He also sent me 4 of those pictures. I don't know if it's the same person, but we can discuss that next class if Sanjeev ji would come, if he's listening to the recording. Then we can discuss those, which are very similar to Goloka chart, but only smaller than Goloka chart, but I could understand with a brief glance, but we can discuss that. With that, thank you so much, everyone, for your blessings, for your association. It's always good to be in Devotees Association. Oh, thanks for the opportunity to serve, and I wish and pray for everyone for auspicious Janmashtami. If you didn't get the chance, then definitely visit the temple near to you, and look forward to see you at some point sooner rather than later. With that, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gurudev Maharaj ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhesh.